Hi, everyone.
Hello. In the last segment, Ray lamented the hundreds, even thousands of men and women that were in jail by the time he left for conscientious objection in the congregations around the world. Not so much for rejecting military service as for rejecting alternative service.
Yeah.
He goes on.
A provision that's made to make it easier for people who have conscience issue with military work.
Yeah. He had related some of this in Crisis of Conscience, so he goes on. In Crisis of Conscience, when relating the discussion of this issue by the governing body in numerous sessions over a period of years, only brief mention was made of a resulting survey taken among all the branch committees operating throughout the world under the direction of the governing body. The survey was suggested by Milton Henschel since, as he put it, perhaps it would reveal that only a relative few countries had alternative service provisions. If such were the case, then that would militate against the need for making any policy change. Apparently, the fact that men in those few countries were in prison and that other hundreds of men would yet go to prison if the policy continued as it was, would not be of sufficient weight or gravity to make the issue a crucial one.
In the survey, the branch committees were to be asked whether the witnesses in their country understood the reasoning behind the policy and its scripturalness, and also what the committee members' own views were of the existing policy. Since the governing body assigned me to carry out the survey correspondence with the 90 or more branch committees, I have in my files copies of all their replies. The responses received were revealing.
Before considering them, I might here quote a portion of a memorandum submitted to the governing body by member Lloyd Barry. Warning against any change in the existing policy, he wrote, quote, "Those who have studied out the matter on the basis of the Bible and who have been through the experience have no question about maintaining a stand of no compromise unless someone comes along and tries to plant such a question. A change of viewpoint sponsored by the governing body would be very upsetting for these countries and brothers where they have fought for so long in behalf of their uncompromising stand." End of quote.
What do the facts show as to the actual thinking of those affected? Does the picture portrayed in the memorandum fit the reality? The information that follows is fairly extensive, though only a fraction of the whole. I believe it merits the space. The reason is that it so graphically demonstrates the power of indoctrination to cause people to sacrifice liberty, years of life and livelihood, and family association in order to obey something that they do not understand or really believe. Doing this purely out of a sense of loyalty to an organization. Anything that produces such a blindly submissive state of mind is fraught with potential danger of even greater consequence.
Since disagreement with any position of the organization is generally viewed as indicating a lack of loyalty and even a lack of faith and confidence in God's direction, it is not at all surprising that the majority of the committees expressed full support for the organization's policy. What is surprising is the significant number of branch committees that spoke of serious difficulties of witnesses in their country, either as to understanding the policy or seeing any scriptural basis for it. Not that they were not complying with the policy. Witness men were going to jail rather than act contrary to it. But did they feel, as governing body member Barry put it, that there was no question about the policy and that led to their being put in prison? Here are direct quotations from the letters sent by some branch committees.
Austria, quote, "Many of the brothers do not fully understand the scriptural position, why they should not render such alternative service." Brazil, quote, "We believe that the brothers would have no difficulty to prove their stand if the work involved direct support of the military machine. say, working in a munitions factory, or constructing barracks, or digging trenches, etc. They would use the same scriptures that they use for objecting to direct military service. The brothers would have difficulty if the work involved building a road for civilian use, or work on some agricultural project, or other work of that kind.
Italy, quote, "From direct contacts made with the brothers faced with a military service problem, we found that in the majority of cases, they did not understand why they could not accept alternative civilian service. They maintained that no longer being under the direct jurisdiction of the military authorities, because of having been assigned to another ministry, they could accept alternative civilian service, just as long as they did not engage in any activity having to do with militarism, but doing non-military work, such as in museums or hospitals, etc., they would not be guilty of any violation of their neutrality." And this from Spain, quote, "As a part of the research for this report, a member of the branch committee spoke extensively with 3 brothers who were exemplary in their neutral stand years ago. He also conversed with 3 mature elders, two of them from other countries, who have not personally faced the issue in Spain. Varying viewpoints surfaced on many aspects of this matter, but there was complete agreement on one point, and that is this point. Practically none of our young brothers really understand why we cannot accept substitute service if it is of a civic nature and not under the control of the military. It seems clear that most of the elders do not understand it either, and therefore they often send youngsters to the branch office to get information. So the question comes up, why don't they understand? Is it lack of personal study? Or is it because the arguments and reasonings we have used are not convincing enough, or do not have a clear and firm Bible stand? So is it not clear from these quotes, just from these quotes, that there's no consensus of conscience around the globe?
I mean, actually, the consensus is the reverse of the Watchtower's position, really, it seems. Because none of them seem to understand it. They, in their minds, it would be all right to do that substitute service. In their conscience, as long as it wasn't directly connected with military, they seem to think, well, I would have been comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So the consensus is on the other side.
And it's not just the young brothers either. It's the leaders of the branches and the elders.
Yeah. They can't quite, say it with assertion, because they're not understanding it themselves.
So you could say they're really not obeying now or complying with the policy out of from the conscience.
It's just loyalty to the organization.
Not scripture, they don't understand it. Not from conscience.
Yeah.
So I'm reminded of Daniel chapter 3, where the Hebrew youth, when they refused to comply with idolatrous performances in public, they're very in why they're doing it and why they cannot do it.
They can explain themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that struck me when we read it was they're not going, like, there's no indication that the anointed or the remnant are even in this procedure.
Yeah.
It's all based on the policy of the governing body and the organization as a whole, like the structure is from the headquarters.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't give you any indication that they're even asking the anointed what they think of this policy.
I think it becomes clear in this chapter that there's certain members of the governing body, here one of them named, as we've seen his name frequently over the last few chapters, Lloyd Barry, who tend to steamroll the policy.
Yeah.
Based on, again, precedent from their own past.
Yeah.
Notice he's upset here because he thinks this would upset the brothers, the ones who've been loyal in the past. Any change of policy would upset them.
But why would you even be considering a change of policy if it's so obvious?
Yeah.
That it's going against scripture. You wouldn't even have to be reviewing whether or not the policy needed changing.
Yeah.
So it seems to be only they're thinking practically. Okay, well, maybe we would change the policy if there was this problem.
Yeah. So pragmatism rules.
Yeah.
More examples of the consensus from around the world as to how the brothers in the branches were feeling during this period when alternative service was definitely a no-no.